The Championship is back, ladies and gentlemen, and in today's video we are here to digest everything that went down in the Championship over the weekend. We've got another game going on tonight as well. If you want to see my preview for that one, do head back to last week's video for my Championship Week 1 predictions. But we are here today to digest all 11 matches which have gone on in the Championship so far, and we're certainly not short of talking points after game week 1. As always, do get your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you make of your team's performance from game week 1? Are you optimistic about the season to come, or did some worrying concerns pop up during this game week? Let me know down below. Without any further ado though, let's head into the matches. And starting out with Friday night's game, we had our first taste of Vincent Kompany's Burnley, and I have to say I was really impressed with what I saw from this one. Walking out with all 3 points, Ian Maxton with the only goal of the game. Took that goal really well after 18 minutes, and from that point onwards, up until the half-time mark, Burnley could have had several more goals throughout this one, really. I thought that the passing moves and interchanges were all really clean and fluid throughout this one, but this is by far and away the worst I've seen Huddersfield over that first 45 minutes especially in quite some time. There was a slight improvement from Huddersfield with the changes they brought around in the second half, but not to the degree where I thought they deserved anything from this game. I thought that Burnley were by far and away the better side in this one, and could have even had more in that second half. You know, Scott Twine hitting the post with that free kick. But yeah, if this is going to be the blueprint of Vincent Kompany's Burnley side going forward, I'm quite optimistic for their chances this season. It was interesting listening to some of his comments before the game as well, in terms of how he sees this side and how there probably is that lack of a recognised goal scorer who's going to be popping up with, 20 goals plus this season. But what Burnley do have is contributors from all over the pitch, and I think that will be the case for Burnley this season, and where the majority of their goals come from, I think they'll be well distributed throughout that squad. In terms of Huddersfield, it wasn't a great showing for Danny Schofield's debut in the dugout for this one. There was that slight improvement in the second half, but in terms of offering a goal threat, there was virtually nothing in this one, and tactically they were quite a ways off the pace in the first half. I thought Burnley absolutely had their number, but yeah, really excited to see more of Burnley and Vincent Kompany as this season goes on. Well deserved victory on the opening day for me. Next then to Ewood Park for Blackburn 1, QPR 0. Two new managers coming into the league for this one, so we weren't all too sure what to expect, but I think that Blackburn were deserved victors from this one in the end, and quite an unlikely goal scorer popping up with their goal for this one. Lewis Travis with an absolute worldie, wraps his foot around the ball from outside the box, and it's an absolute thunderbolt into the top corner. Blackburn were in the ascendancy throughout the majority of this match, really. In the second half they were certainly still the better side. Breton Diaz went close to wrapping this one up with almost a goal of his own, and for QPR, not quite at the pace for this one. I never think that you can read all too much into game week 1, as this is the first game back from pre-season and things like that, and there are still a few parts missing from this QPR side. There was a very obvious Chris Willock shaped hole within the attacking lineup for this QPR squad, and no doubt they'll be better once he's back in the frame. But yeah, some promising signs there from Blackburn in John Dahl Thomason's first game in charge with all 3 points. For Blackpool up against Reading, it was a winning start for new manager Michael Appleton coming into this one. For the first 20-25 minutes, it was Blackpool who were by far and away the side in the ascendancy for this one. Unlucky not to have a few goals and to have killed this game off by that 20-minute mark. Took the goal really well after 9 minutes. Callum Connolly with an absolutely smashing effort into the roof of the net past Joe Lumley, and from that point onwards had a couple of other openings. Josh Bowler was unlucky not to get on the score sheet throughout this one. From that point onwards though, there was the feeling that Reading continued to grow into the game, and especially in the second half they were the team that were on top. Whether that was more a case of Reading upping the ante a little bit, or Blackpool happy to sort of preserve and hold on to what they had, probably a little bit of both in the end, but nothing quite fell for Reading in the final third. And so while there were some more promising signs from that second half, I think there's still a lot of work to be done within that group. For Blackpool, I think it was quite important actually that Appleton got off to a winning start and a decent start to go ahead and get all the fans sort of on side. It's been a bit of a turbulent summer for Blackpool in general, so to pick up all 3 points on the opening weekend I think will be big in terms of building a little bit of momentum from this point onwards. Next then for Cardiff up against Norwich. Cardiff taking all 3 points on the opening day. I did fancy Cardiff coming into this one with my prediction, and fair play to them. You know, Steve Morrison handing out a lot of debuts for this one, our first real opportunity to see this new Cardiff City side, and there were some real signs of promise. Romain Sawyers with the only goal of the game, and what a goal it was, by the way. Catches it brilliantly from outside the box, and it just arrows into that far post past Tim Krul. From that point onwards, I think Norwich's biggest problem from this game was that real lack of ideas and creativity within the final third, because as soon as they went behind, I thought that was bleedingly obvious, to be honest. I think that out of everyone in that Norwich squad, by the looks of things, it was Cantwell who was offering a little bit in terms of creativity, went quite close with a shot in the first half, but other than that, there was a serious lack of ideas from this Norwich squad, which will obviously need to be addressed. Whether that will be a case of, you know, Gabriel Sara coming into the side and adding that, or getting more out of the players that are already there. We did have a little bit of drama in the second half as well, with a couple of red cards. Perry and G, first of all, reducing Cardiff down to 10, and then Grant Hanley soon after that as well. Not the ideal start for Norwich here, but there's still plenty of time to go. Next then for Hull up against Bristol City. Looked like a really entertaining game, this one, to be honest. It was the away side who started out as the quicker of the two, Andy Weimann giving Bristol City the lead. Quite a well taken set piece routine, this one, with the ball being flipped back across, and then Andy Weimann opening his account for the season. The more we got into the second half though, the more Hull started to grow into this one, and chances were being created. I thought Hull's midfield three actually looked quite decent from some of the clips I've seen from this one. Looked like there were some nice interchanges of play. Seri especially looked like an absolute chance creating machine in the middle for this one. I think 7 chances he created throughout the 90 minutes in this one. Tufan then puts Hull level from the penalty spot, and it was a controversial penalty. I think because of the nature of how theatrical it actually was in terms of the penalty being given, Bristol City will probably feel a little bit miffed by that. When you do look at some of the stills in terms of the images from behind the goal and things like that, you can see that there is a little bit of contact there from Naismith, but yeah, it's one to be debated, although I think Hull did have some penalty appeals waved away before that. Tufan sticks away that penalty brilliantly, and from that point onwards the game looks like it's in the balance. Bristol City have a few chances, but Seri pops up with the winner in the 94th minute with the help of a deflection. And I mean, how many times did this happen to Bristol City last season, where you know, we get into added time and they'd either concede a late equaliser or the team against them would go on to win it. Whether that's a concentration issue, pattern of bad luck, I'm not so sure, but it's happened again, and Hull get off to a brilliant start to the season with that 2-1 win. Next then to Kenilworth Road, where Luton played out a goalless draw with Birmingham. I'm sure that Luton will probably take this point, knowing that they got battered by Birmingham twice last season, but a solid enough point for Birmingham on the road to kick off their season as well. It was Luton who had the better chances in this one, but nothing quite dropped for them in the final third. Like some of the new tactical tweaks that we saw from this Luton side in this one, the presence of Luke Freeman in midfield as well seems like could be a decent fit under a manager like Nathan Jones to go ahead and unlock the player that's sort of been missing over these last few years, if he can get him fully fit and firing for the season. Birmingham going away to a place like Kenilworth Road though, with all the, you know, speculation and doubt that we've had over this group over the summer, I think is a decent enough way to start out of their season. And next up, a game against Huddersfield, who themselves didn't look all too sharp on game week 1, is a decent chance for Birmingham to get some more points on the board going into next week as well. Next up then to the Den, we have Millwall 2, Stoke City 0. In typical Millwall fashion, it was 2 set pieces they scored from this one. Charlie Cresswell with a brace on his debut. If that's not a confidence booster for him going into this season, I'm not sure what is. The Millwall fans will have absolutely taken to him from this point onwards as well. And overall, it was a really promising performance from Millwall. Last season, they were the 3rd best home side in the Championship in terms of points collected. I'm sure they'll look to play on that strength this season. As that was the case, I think we all saw this one being a little bit of a tough one for Stoke to come into, and in terms of the closest they went throughout this one, probably that speculative Tyrese Campbell effort in the first half, where Bilkowski almost ended up spilling it into the back of his own net, but had enough time to go ahead and react and claw that one back off the goal line. Stoke next up, I think, have a home game against Blackpool. We'll be looking to see a few improvements from them in that game, but Millwall just had that aerial dominance points in terms of set-piece situations, which Stoke struggled to deal with, and a great way for them to start the season with all 3 points. Rotherham up against Swansea played out as a 1-1 draw. A lot of draws on this opening Championship weekend, but we did mention a possible vulnerability for Swansea coming into this one would be maybe a long ball coming forward, a set-piece situation, and in the end it was actually a long throw-in that Rotherham ended up scoring from. There were some of those vulnerabilities within this Swansea squad last season. I think some of those still need to be addressed, by way of how Rotherham actually scored the opener. In terms of equalising though, oh my god, what a strike from Harry Darling on his Swansea City debut. The centre half absolutely launches ones into the top bins, and we had some crackers scored this weekend, but for me I think that has to be the goal of the week. Absolute thunderbolt from him. In the second half, Swansea were probably disappointed that they didn't get on the score sheet with some of the opportunities they created. Patterson had a decent chance, Perot with a few touches in and around the box, but the best chance falling to Michael Obafemi, and he completely fluffed his lines when the goal was gaping at him. Didn't even get a shot away in the end. Rotherham also had some openings as well, but I think that's a decent enough point for Rotherham on the opening day. We mentioned one of the biggest problems Rotherham have faced in previous years in the Championship is failing to be competitive from minute one. It always took them a little bit of time to sort of grow into the season, and by the time they did that it was already too late. So to not lose on the opening weekend, pick up a point against a decent Swansea side, I think is a good omen for them going forward. Next then to the DW4, Wigan 0, Preston North End 0. I was at this game, and a bit of a funny game really. Certainly a game of two halves where the momentum shifted between each side. I thought that Preston certainly had the better of the first half in terms of the chances we created. Like the addition of Robbie Brady on that left hand side, thought he was probably our most creative outlet throughout this one, and in the second half we probably regressed a little bit when he started to tire. But in terms of some of those first half chances, the best two coming right at the end of the half, it was Troy Parrott sent through on goal. Ben Amos stands him up brilliantly. It then falls to Emile Rees and he couldn't convert either. So yeah, Ben Amos level to each of them. In the second half, Preston's energy levels just really dipped down, and it was certainly Wigan who were the better in that half. A lot of sort of last-ditch blocks from Preston. A couple of moments where Woodman had to come up as well and close down the angles, and so a point in the end, not the worst result in the world. Obviously we had to play down to 10 men with the last 10 minutes with Ched Evans getting sent off. Absolutely no complaints over that one. I think it was probably the easiest red card that refs really had to give out. Yeah, signs of promise from each side, but I think still a little bit of rust to get off from each of them. That second half from North End, we couldn't really seem to get out of first gear. We were sort of camped in our own half, and our energy levels really seemed to dip down. But yeah, some promising signs from Wigan there. I'll take a point on the opening day. Next then to the Riverside 4, Middlesbrough up against West Brom. It was interesting to watch how this one sort of played out, because these are two sides who I think the vast majority of us think will be right up there in and around the top half of the Championship this season. I think that we saw a real glimpse of how much havoc Middlesbrough's wing-backs are actually going to cause throughout this season. Giles involved with the build-up to the opening goal, and then Jones going ahead and sticking that one away for 1-0. After that point, Borough certainly had the chances to go 2-0 up, and maybe from that point make it a little bit more difficult for West Brom to get back into this game. But when West Brom have such quality in the final third, it was only going to be a matter of time before one of those chances was converted. Jed Wallace providing John Swift for the equaliser. How many goals are we going to see those two combining for throughout this season? And then from that point onwards, there were a couple of openings for both sides. So a decent enough point, I think, and an interesting sort of gauge of where these two sides are at this point on the opening day of the season. But I still think both sides, there are more additions to come perhaps later on in the window. And then the last game of the weekend to talk over was Sunderland playing at a 1-1 draw with Coventry. Really enjoyed this one. I think that massive crowd in at the Stadium of Light is going to be a real driving force behind Sunderland's home form this season. I think a few sides may find that a bit of a daunting place to go to, and they started out at absolutely 100 miles an hour. By far and away the side who were on top in those opening 10 to 15 minutes, and deservedly so, got that goal. Gooch linking up with Clark for the opener, and they had the openings to go on and make it two past that point. Coventry continued to grow into the game though. There was almost an absolutely outrageous goal scored by Panzo, who'd obviously seen Harry Darling's goal from the day before, but there were a few moments, particularly in that second half, where there were some mistakes made by the Sunderland side that weren't quite capitalised on by Coventry. In the end, that equaliser rolled around, and what what a finish it was, by the way. Gyökeres, who up until that point hadn't really been having his greatest game. Godden as well also missed a chance before that as well. But oh my god, such a well taken goal. Drifts in and out of the few, and then the way he hits it and the sound of the back of the net as it goes in. Absolute arrow into the bottom corner. And I think deservedly so, finished as a 1-1 draw in the end. I think that Sunderland have got more to give as the season goes on, but that's a decent enough point on the opening day against a good Coventry side who a lot of us are back to be up and around the playoff picture. But guys, there we have it. Those were all the matches taking place in the Championship over this weekend. Obviously, we've still got a game going on tonight as well, which we'll be talking about in a future video. We're really excited to see our first glimpse of Watford this season and how strong Sheffield United will actually be. But if you yourself were at a game this weekend or you picked up on anything else, do let me know about it in the comments down below. And if you did go on to enjoy, do leave a like and stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.